you very much.
Thank you for playing that. Was that part of a longer work?
No, that's the actual length of the work. Yeah, that is the piece called 109.47 degrees, and I think I played it even a little bit longer than usually. I'm not sure how long I played, but yeah, that's the length.
One of the things that was really nice about that was how it was so around the room. The sound was like really great surround sound, and this is something that I think you've talked about in other interviews about how you've built up to being able to do surround things when you're not always composing with that in your studio.
Absolutely, no. It's. I'm trying to imagine that, and while working on little stereo monitoring at home, and it's. I love that feeling when I hear a multi-channel piece for the first time on multiple speakers, and to see if my imagination was wrong or not. But actually, I was really surprised myself how it sounded in here. I thought it was really especially good. At some point, I started to hear sounds coming from back there, but not in a like blurred, reflected way, but as there were speakers, but there are not. So that was really special because it's not a surround sound. Particularly, it's a special speaker setup with an ultra-wide stereo kind of thingy.
Can we talk about your journey as a producer?
Yeah.
How you started out and how you got here. It's a long journey.
It's a long journey. I guess it all, is certainly intertwined. But I started as I would say, like a logical follow-up for being a DJ, because being a club music DJ requires that you beat match, and if you want to beat match, you have to listen to specific elements in the record. So I think that really trained a sort of analytical hearing. So I could identify single parts of the tracks, and then I could start to like certain sounds, and then my curiosity started, and I was asking other people, what is that sound? And then immediately, like all these like amazing stories came about from the legendary synthesizers, and of course I was like, okay, an 808. So how does an 808 look? And then, of course, I saw an 808 and I was amazed. So it was more really coming from that DJing angle, and then being kind of in love with certain sounds, and the machines were really sweet. So my approach to the whole electronic music was very much a hardware approach. And then I started to buy a little bit of gear, and my colleagues, actually gear that my colleagues at Hardwax didn't need anymore. So I got the basic channel 808 and the Multimoog from Mark and Nestus, and sequential circuit from 6-track from Banker, and 101 also from the Basic Channel Studio. So that was nice, but it took a very, very long time until I really started to intensively work with these machines. I think that was mostly due to me touring as a DJ, like quite intensively for over 10 years. And that meant like every week, at least 2 gigs in 2 different cities out of home, and traveling a lot, and sometimes 4 gigs in a week. And at least I'm really not able to learn something and to really get into a matter and dedicate myself to exploring a new field if I'm at home maybe one quiet day per week. It's hard. So that took me a long time, mostly due to this touring schedule. But it really developed strongly when I started to play improvisational concerts with other people in 2002. So that's also already 15 years ago. Yeah. So from there, I started to experiment and try out different forms of music. And the common denominator, I would say, is the searching for sound.
Yeah.
I think that is what links techno to avant-garde music or new music.
Yeah, and you've talked about like Ableton and getting into Ableton and that really expanding the sort of things that you were able to do. It gave you like a new set of tools. Is that something that was like a big deal for you?
Absolutely. I started to use Ableton with the version 2, I think. That must have been in 2003 or something. Because I had a booking for a live concert in New York. And up to then, I always traveled with the Multi-Moog and the 808 and the Sequential Circuit 6-track, and I don't even have cases for these machines. Yeah. So it was completely out of the question to do that in New York, and then I thought, friends of mine told me that there are friends of friends who are developing a software special particularly for playing live. So maybe that's the solution for me. And yes, it was. I made terrible mistakes for the longest years. I had really it is very intuitive, but I had no clue about digital signal processing. I made a lot of mistakes, but I learned doing these mistakes. And then, after all, it opened up the whole world of digital processing of basic raw material. And this is like what I've been doing a lot in the past 5 years or so, mostly with granular resynthesis of particular source material.
Yeah. One of the things you were just talking about earlier was at Hardwax, how you had a kind of community of people who would sort of give you advice about gear and when you were starting out with new synthesizers and new equipment. One of the things that seems to be another theme in your work is that you have a lot of really rich networks of collaborators and people that you work with. Both like things like Hardwax, but also things like Female Pressure.
Yeah.
And would you say that that's something that has always been really important to you?
Well, not always, because I founded it in 98.
Yeah.
So it was not always there. But for me, I think from my career, the Hardwax home was really like the most important. It really coined my understanding of techno music, of electronic music culture, so to say. And the various collaborations, a lot with other women, came about also through Female Pressure, but not only. But I think it was clear with my work for Female Pressure to other women that I'm very open to collaborate with women, yes, of course. Yeah.
If you're talking about hardware that's driving what you're able to do, there's also another thing where you could make an argument that Female Pressure exists or was able to exist because of certain technologies that also came about around the same time that you were putting this together. And I'd kind of like to know about some of the technological basis of how you actually organized this in the early days. Because 1998, I mean, the internet of 1998 was just, really pokey and slow, and how you even would find people. I mean, this was like the days of, Usenet and listservs. And I guess I'd just like to know how you got started finding people and speaking to them and getting everything going.
Facts. No, for real. Absolutely true. It was already clear, I would say, by 96 or so, or 95, that the internet is the coming thing, but not many people had access. And yes, it was slow and stuff. But the first lists were, I can't remember. I probably already computer lists, like some software, some not Excel, but some other like Apple-based text processing program where I just collected names and then transformed it into a database. But for all the first contacts that I gathered, they have a field for fax numbers. So fax was still important in the 90s, and as was telephone. And this is how we communicated. We either met or phoned. So yeah.
And I guess some people are probably even still using like dial-up at that time. So
I mean, it was funny. Like nowadays, when you tour as an artist, you always need to have the mobile number of the promoter or the person who picks you up, because otherwise you're completely lost. And of course, that was possible without reaching someone immediately when you arrive at the airport. Because usually you could figure out who that person could be who picks you up, just by the looks. You don't always need a mobile phone.
And when did you start like the mailing list? Because there's like the listserv was a big part of it.
True. I think that was actually Andrea's idea. Andrea Meyer, who programmed the current database many years ago, and it has been running stably, I think, for 17 years now. It's really like super old and kind of clumsy as a software, and also a little bit added here and there, and it should be renewed and polished, but it's stable and it runs. And that was Andrea Meyer's work, who is an open source expert and a media artist. And she, I think, came up with the suggestion we should also run a mailing list. I'm not totally sure where this idea originated from, but so we established a mailing list, and that is kind of funny. Even in times of social media, it is like the only tool we have where really new things happen. We tried forums, and it's just a lot of additional work, and then nobody uses it. There are Facebook groups, we have the Twitter and whatever, but the only thing that really works for initiatives is the mailing list. I don't know why, but that's how it works.
Yeah, I mean, there's an article in the New Yorker this week about how there's a return to mailing lists, especially for women-centered media.
Oh,
because it's a place where people, they have to sort of opt in, and everyone knows who everyone is, or at least the person sending the mailing list knows who all the recipients are. So it kind of filters out all the trolls, all the spam. It's like a really sort of like tunneled direct communication to people who need to get it. So, I mean, it's kind of something that's almost come full circle, maybe. It's like one of the things that stood the test of time and is good for what it does.
Yeah, I think so. I like it. I mean, I understand people having trouble with it, especially with a lively mailing list like Female Pressure, where like every day at least 5 to 10 emails come from different people. So it's a lot of traffic, but I mean, you can filter. I think you can even filter if you use Gmail or web-based email programs. So that makes it, I think, doable.
One of the things about that, though, is like there's kind of a trade-off between you have a network in that's kind of closed in the mailing list, but one of the other things that Female Pressure has always done, which is amazing, is promoting visibility and just getting the need for female producers, female musicians, people working in electronics just out there and recognized. It's a publicity thing. So is there any kind of trade-off issue between building networks on the one hand in this kind of enclosed space and making people visible to the outside world?
I think the only trade-off is that other artists who join the network often have the expectation that Female Pressure, which then is just me, would get them gigs and promote them. And if that does not happen, or that does not happen within, let's say, a couple of months or a year, they are truly disappointed. And this is the trade-off, because somehow there is this hope, with Female Pressure. Okay, they want to raise visibility for other artists, and I have the impression that many don't think like one step further, like who does that work? Yeah. So it's just me, it's me like administrating the database and the website and updating stuff and doing these things that need to be done. And they would probably never get the idea to approach me personally and say, hey, I need some gigs, get me some gigs. And if I say, oh, I'm sorry, I can't help you, then be really pissed off and say, I never talk to you again. Just happened recently. There was
what happened?
A DJ from Portugal. She's been in the business for 25 years, so she's about like the same age as I'm. And she signed up with Female Pressure, and then 2 days after she signed up, she told me, now delete my entry in the database, and I need to unsubscribe. It does nothing for my career. And I'm just getting all these mails from other girls, and none of them is like, I have nothing to do with that. And so I unsubscribed her, and then I asked again, so do you want me to delete your entry in the database? Yes, because it does not help me in my career. So yeah, some people have different expectations, and that's fair enough. Yeah, but
I'm sure there are like so many other projects and collaborations that have come out of just conversations and artists talking to each other.
Of course, and she didn't even wait a little bit,
Yeah.
I can understand if you like in that network and you regularly contribute, and after 10 years still, nobody ever has invited you or even sent you a promo or something, then I can understand, but not after 2 days of passiveness.
Yeah, that's a bit hard. Yeah. I was going to talk about some of the other just changes that you've seen over the time that you've been running it, and how representation and the number and I guess on bills, on just events of women who are actually out there performing and recording and producing tracks. How much have you seen things change over the time you've been doing this?
Well, I see a lot more female artists making electronic music. I see a lot more DJs, so that has become almost normal. And producing music, I can observe it on the mailing list. I have not researched, and I have not looked into the very old archives of the mailing list, but I'm absolutely sure that 15 years ago, there was not every day a woman posting about a new release.
Yeah.
And so that has to do with the number of artists subscribed, of course, but also with the numbers of producers, I think, or musicians and creators. That's one thing. I also think that there are more women represented on lineups of festivals, and we've been conducting these surveys in the past years, and we're actually right now working on a new one that is to be released in 2017. And the percentage that we found in the first survey, which is like 10%, is already above average. Like most of the people I talk about that with react in a oh, that's terrible, it's so bad and it's so disappointing. But personally, I think it's already a lot better than it was. Yeah. Of course, it's not enough, but I see this percentage slowly growing, and particularly in festivals I find interesting, and that might be a self-fulfilling prophecy, of course, and there's certainly a bias. But like, let's say the commercial festivals that do not interest me artistically usually like don't care about such political meta agendas. The gender agendas.
Yeah.
But the nice people, they care and they improve. At least, like, let's say in Europe or in probably like in industrialized countries that are democratic. I don't know how to put that. Yeah, I see an improvement, and I think the quota is slowly rising.
Yeah. That's good. I mean, and it's good to see like this kind of pressure, you know, being put on year after year, and like going back to revisit the stats and comparing, you know, survey after survey.
One thing though, I have the impression, but I'm not sure if that is correct, that the let's say artistic life cycle of female artists is shorter than the one of the men.
Yes.
So like Sven Feth is still around, Carl Cox is still around, and I'm still around, but I'm not that famous. But but then you have the Nina Kravitz hype, and you had the Miss Kittin hype, and that doesn't last that long. And I'm wondering, why is that? For example, Miss Kittin I find interesting because she did a lot more than, let's say, Sven Feth, for example, production-wise. Usually people say, well, you're not a famous DJ because you don't have like the popular tracks out. Sven Feth hardly made any tracks himself, if ever. He released some stuff under his name. And Miss Kittin did release a lot of super popular records.
She was everywhere, like around 2000, like everywhere.
And she still does her stuff, and she has management, and she does pretty much everything right that one has to do as an artist. And I think she is still getting like very high fees and has her bookings, but in media, for example, she's not as present as she used to be. So I'm wondering, why is that? And that is what I mean with the artistic life cycle.
This is one thing that we see a lot too. It's like you'll see female artists and producers like promoted when they're maybe starting out in a career. So maybe they're like, you know, mid to late 20s to about mid 30s or so, and then they're really heavily promoted. Then there's a drop off, and they might resurface again as
when they are
like,
70.
Yeah, of course. It's like the wise women, and it does just seem. I mean, we've talked about this before, and I totally agree with you that it's like a Hollywood life cycle where you can be like, you know, the ingenue, and then just like there's nothing, and then you're like the wise woman if you're allowed to be invited back, but. It's just like this real like dropping out, and you know, it's like it doesn't really apply to men, and that's
I mean, honestly, of course, it's hard for every artist to maintain a spirit and to maintain to stay interesting and interested. Probably even more important than interesting. But still, I don't know. I also see a gender gap, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, this is like one thing I wanted to talk about like how image plays into the career and just how it plays out for the career of like electronic producers who are women, because so much is image based as far as like how people talk about and how people write about the music. And one of the things that Female Pressure did that was really good was the Tumblr, the long-running Tumblr of all these different producers in their studios with their gear, just photographed like at work, like doing what they wanted to be doing, not all like glammed up for some promo shot or whatever, but just like with the nuts and bolts of whatever they're working with.
Yeah, that had a huge media impact, definitely, yes. Yeah. That was a very good idea. It came from Björk, I think, and Antje Greie took up the idea and started this Tumblr collecting all the photos from women in their studios, just because people seem to have a hard time imagining women and girls with technical equipment. So like this is something super exotic and exceptional.
Yeah, and one of the things that is nice about now is that there are so many tutorials online and so many like softwares that are just available for people to teach themselves, that there's not that barrier of having to go to the gear shop and have like some dude just like, oh, you don't know how to use that. Oh.
I mean, even if it's not dismissive, it's always a bit awkward, I think, if you're treated as something very special.
Yeah.
You have to have the right personality to somehow deal with that on the long run, I guess. Anyhow, what I wanted to say, to be fair about the Tumblr, that it's of course not only interesting because it's all women, but it's interesting in general to see people in their studio.
Yeah.
No matter what gender they have. So, and there are not many blogs that collect images of people in their studio. I know actually one blog that does that, but all they have only featured men so far. I forgot the name though.
Vince Clark, he's got a synth blog. He's got a video synth
I don't know. There's one blog that has like a series of portraits of electronic music producers in like a portrait of their studio, basically. Yeah.
People just like walking through. Here's my gear. Here's what I use. That's great. I mean, that whoever's doing it, that just demystifies it and just makes it something that people of any gender can just see. Like, yeah, I could do this.
Yeah, it's nice to see the differences and to see what maybe is similar, so that you can somehow relate with your own practice.
Yeah. Okay. I think I've asked like most of my main questions.
You promised me gear talk.
Well, I think we got some gear talk. Is there anything else you want to talk about? I do have a question. This is another thing about technology and things coming up with the internet. Just because like you seem to be just like really in tune to when things become possible. You find an opportunity and you jump on it. Like the Open Sounds compilation that you did. It's like that happened just when streaming was like really viable and it didn't like always cut out or get all choppy. That was around like 2005. Is that true?
Yeah.
We
started that 2005.
Yeah,
it's true.
So I mean, it's like, how do you have this kind of radar for finding when things are happening and just like?
I have great friends.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that the whole Creative Commons thing was also Andrea's idea, and this is what I love about people when they are like interested and smart and open for new things. So this is what inspires me too. And Andrea said we should do let's do something with Creative Commons. Actually, there was this association in Vienna, close to the Social Democratic Party of Vienna, who funds like cultural things, and they approached us repeatedly. They sent an email to Female Pressure, hey, don't you have a project? We want to fund you. And then Andrea said, hey, let's do a Creative Commons project. And I thought, wow, that fits perfectly with Female Pressure. So I think a lot comes around if you are surrounded by the right people.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Anybody gear questions?
Should we pass around the mic, or can everybody just... Okay. Yeah.
I'd like to know more about the sound sources that went into that composition you just played. Please, just have a
Yeah. Huh? Pardon? The basic raw material of the piece you just heard are actually recordings of very old instruments of a Baroque organ and the inside of a grand piano, and both instruments played in the wrong way. So I was actually playing the organ for the recordings in Viseu, in a very beautiful Portuguese cathedral, and I played it with the register only pulled half the way, so they were not stable in their position, which results in almost like breathing voices, because you hear the air flowing through with a lot of friction through the pipes. And then due to the instability of the register, sometimes they jump all the way out or they jump in, and these also kind of percussive noises in the recordings. So this is still very well hearable in the piece. And Angelina Yershova, who is a great composer who lives in Rome, and I did a project with her, and I used some of the recordings we did for our common project, where she plays in various ways, like the strings of the piano inside with the open lid, but not only that, also I don't know, mistreating the frame of the piano, doing weird stuff with it. So these are like the two sources, and then from there I process them really strongly with granular synthesis using a free Max for Life device by Robert Henke called the Granulator, which is one of my favorite synthesizers.
Anyone else?
So what's coming up next? The next project?
Well, I'm currently working on or finalizing tracks for an album finally, because I have never made an album, and I will be 52 this year, so it's about time. And I have a premiere of a completely new work in Berlin in the beginning of July for the Heroines of Sound Festival. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I have to write or produce this piece as well. This is coming next, and everything very densely.
This piece, I understand, is an older piece, so has it been changed, or has it evolved?
It has surprisingly remained very similar to how it was in the first place. It has evolved though, because there are various versions. I did 2 or 3 different versions for acousmonium concerts with it, and that works pretty well. And I noticed that there is so much space in the music that it can be combined with a lot of other things. So when I have like new collaborations or improvisation concerts, I usually use this material to work with it. I had a version with like polyrhythmic parts added to it, going through different speakers in a polyrhythmical way, for example. So there are different versions, and I'm recently for the concert tonight and also for the concert at Intonai Festival in Malmö, Sweden, I decided to go over the sounds again, and I restructured my live set, and I had audio recordings, and I decided to switch back to the original synthesizer because I have a stronger computer now. I can do that with the CPU. And I noticed that actually some of the sounds since changed or slightly, and the musical structure has changed a little bit. So I think I improved some parts. Yeah, it lives.
Yeah. I feel like we have something you said because you've been doing it for so long and you made loads of mistakes because you didn't understand signaling. I think, yeah, I feel like I'm in that process as well, but you learn as you go, and you know how did you understand it? What did you do to teach yourself? Was it just always making mistakes, or did you get help from your friends? What did you do to solve the problems?
Well, both. Yeah. I usually notice problems only or mistakes only when it's too late. So, for example, when I produce a track, I hear I don't hear obvious mistakes. It has to be pressed on vinyl, and then I have to hear it on a big system in the club before I can realize that I make like a very horrible, very obvious super mistake. Yeah. Sometimes it's I don't know. Perception is a tricky thing. Yeah.
There was someone who had their hand up.
It's just about the microphones that you use when you recorded the piano. Was anything with the microphones, how such you recorded? Was it just one microphone or multiple microphones? How did you record?
Angelina did that. So she had proper microphoning similar to today. So that it was really like very properly set. Yeah. But actually, with this working method with granular synthesis, you don't have to have like a perfect recording of some source material. It can be anything pretty much, but you then have, of course, to deal with that specific, let's say, trashy quality if you have a trashy recording. But that can be interesting. Yeah.
I just wanted to know what your kind of home or studio kind of software and hardware setup was, and if you have a home and a separate studio, and how that affects your process, or if you work elsewhere and how that affects everything.
I love working at home, and I don't have a proper studio. That's probably why I make these mistakes that I was mentioning. And the setup is very similar to what I have here. I mean, I still have like some of my old synthesizers, but I hardly ever use them. So since I work so much with this digital processing, I need my computer, I need my sound card, I need some MIDI interfaces, And that's the most important thing. My software is Ableton Live and Max for Live, even though I don't write my own Max for Live devices. I don't want to spend time with engineering, really, or it would take me too much time, I would say, because I would have to learn it from scratch almost. I know a little bit, but not enough to make something really super cool. And there are some super cool ready-made free devices already, so yeah. And I have, since 2 years, I have Genelex 8020s, so the speakers also changed a lot of my approach to making music. It helped me a lot because I had some really like shitty old speakers before that, and that was difficult, really hard. I could manage though because I learned like the deficiency of the. But that's not very good. But on the other hand, I mean, the hearing situation in the studio is always different than from the thousands of possibilities of where your music could, in theory, be heard, you know? So it's always good to have different hearing situations.
You were saying that you got a lot of equipment, a lot of right away and so on. And now you're speaking a lot about software.
Yeah.
Do you miss somehow this analog feeling you can combine?
I don't miss it. I was looking for a bass line the other day, and I connected my Multimoog again. Yeah, but it did not fascinate me that much anymore. I mean, also because it's also my own mistake because I hardly ever use it. Like some keys don't work anymore, and the potties they start to rust a little bit, so it's not treated well. It should be used regularly to be well maintained. Nevertheless. I even was disappointed then I did not find a good sound, so I connected a microbrute because I also have a newer hardware. And the microbrute, I think, was really disappointing because it does not understand velocity. And if I have a contemporary synthesizer, I would love to have the possibility to express notes with a different velocity. It cannot do that, so I probably am going to sell the microbrutes again.
How much?
What do you want to pay? Yeah, no, I don't really miss it. And I have friends like Dorit Kreisler, for example. She's a great theremin player and musician and composer. And she is a total analog enthusiast. And she says things like, nothing sounds like analog machines or so. And I don't think so. I think anything sounds good if you make the right things with it. So, yeah, I don't.
One last one. It's not a question, it's just a statement, just to say that I absolutely, categorically think female pressure has done a huge amount for visibility.
Oh, thank you.
It's an absolute fact.
That's wonderful.
Visibility, female producers, performers, specifically within electronic music at festivals, as well as in the studios, and also psychologically the ability to feel that you can learn, and then there's
The what?
The ability to feel that you can learn. It's safe to learn and ask questions. That comes first. romantic thing, but yeah, there should be no doubt in that. So thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. And it's so great to see so many female pressure people here tonight. Yeah. Cool.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you. Pleasure.
I think it was, yeah.